Hello, Opening Pathways viewers. It's great to be with you again. This is Tom LeNoble, and I have a great guest today for you. Jaclyn Orent, the CEO of Cultural Catalyst Network, is with us today. And Jaclyn, it's great to see you. Welcome to Opening Pathways. You look a little different than the last time I saw you. Do you
Yeah.
want to share what's going on?
Yeah, I just got hit head on by an e-bike that probably weighed at least 6 times the weight of my bike and separated the ligament from my collarbone to my shoulder. So I can't quite move in half of my body right now, but that did not stop me from wanting to have a conversation with you today.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know the viewers will, and I'm sure we all send you wishes for a speedy healing, but I think we all get a little taste already of who Jaclyn is, that she's willing to join us after an experience like this. I saw it online, and I wondered if Jaclyn was even going to be with me today, and was sending out lots of good energy. So I'm going to ask everyone to do that, to send good thoughts or whatever you do for a speedy recovery and healing for Jaclyn. Jaclyn, welcome again. I want to
Thank you.
start at the beginning. I want
Yeah.
to know about Cultural Catalyst Network and what sparked your idea to start it.
Yeah, so the Cultural Catalyst Network is truly a calling, and I've been seeking my calling for nearly a decade now. That was really I would say the most recent thing that really initiated what it is that I'm working on right now is that I left sales leadership and I knew that I wasn't wanting to pursue sales as my life's work after being in sales for nearly my whole career. And, but I knew I didn't know quite what it was yet. And so I left the organization I was leading. And one of the realizations after the reflection that I took some time off is that the exponential results that they were wanting me to create in that environment really needed to be done from the top down. I was developing my team in a very unique way to be able to create what they were wanting. And I realized that I couldn't do it without addressing the primary decision maker. And so I ended up working with a multi-business founder and getting to facilitate a um, literally holistic, just complete system level transformation for him. When I was actually, ironically, 20 minutes away meditating, I got a nudge to go support him, and it turned out his entire team was walking out on him. And so I got to intervene, and I have quite an extensive background, but I'll tell you what ended up happening blew my mind, Tom. And I realized that the outcomes and the way that we've actually been developing leaders and creating systemic change is backwards. It's focusing on what you can see and what I call Newtonian physics, which is A causes B. And it doesn't address the underlying field that actually affects the things that are causing A and B. And so I ended up working primarily with founders and CEOs and gathering a bunch of data and outcomes, and eventually applied to grad school with a thesis of connecting consciousness to systemic change and wanting to change the way that we developed leaders and wanting to change the way that we created organizational change. And I got to meet two really important researchers along the way. Number one is Richard E. Boyatzis, who is a Harvard University graduate and a Case Western University researcher who spent the last 60 years studying change and how it actually happens from the individual to the organization all the way to the community level and even up to the country and global processes. And I also got a chance to meet Dr. Benjamin Hardy, famous organizational psychologist, who basically told me not to read any of his other work besides the science of scaling. So I actually ended up taking myself through the scaling science that Hardy did. And I realized I didn't need to go to grad school to study what I was wanting to do. I actually just needed to implement it. So the research already existed for how do we create exponential, positive, life-giving systemic change. And that's what we're doing with the Cultural Catalyst Network. We're applying the research and creating the conditions for a new culture.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So here's my question for you. How have you fundamentally changed personally since you started Cultural Catalyst Network?
Yeah. Well, it's funny with the scaling science, because it's based off of impossible goals and impossible timelines, it's fundamentally meant to redefine who you are and what you focus on. And I started Cultural Catalyst as a coach. I'd been a coach for nearly 8 years. I had developed the skill set to produce exponential outcomes for my clients, and I actually got stuck because the results I was providing were so exponential, way more than what the mind could perceive, that I needed to get out of the results paradigm and go into where the imagination is. And so I actually ended up founding something called the Impact Program, which is a one-on-one container for leaders on the precipice of creating systemic change. And in that container with one of my founding members, she introduced the term cultural catalyst. And I had received some mentorship from someone who doesn't sell outcomes, he sells dreams, which is the difference between a premium and a luxury strategy. And cultural catalyst was that. Cultural catalyst, when you hear it for the right people, they raise their hand and they say, that's me. And that's called a social identity group. And so I've gone from being a coach to now an architect and integrating 3 different bodies of research, which does include the consciousness science of Dr. David Hawkins as well, and including the indigenous culture of councils too. So I've changed in how I'm spending my time to actually creating a repeatable structure that produces outcomes without my presence, and also making sure that it's simple enough that it can actually outlive me.
Amazing. So tell me this, you know, we all start out as little kids or little people,
Mm.
and I find that someone influenced who we became. Who was that for you?
So when I was 25, I got fired from my dream job, and it was like the best of what I could have possibly gotten at that time on all different levels. And I left that position trying to find out who I was and what I was wanting. And I basically realized that I had some health issues that were needing to be addressed. And I eventually found someone by the name of Dr. Rita Marie Loscalzo, who's actually the founder of the Institute for Nutritional Endocrinology. Nothing else on the planet like it exists. It turns out she lived in Austin like I did. And so I actually ended up going and getting a chance to meet her. And then I got a chance to study under her. And this woman is brilliant, master level. She trains practitioners, nurses, doctors in functional medicine. And when I was in relationship with her, she mentioned she did a water fast that changed her life when she was younger. It was only 2 weeks long, but I had never even heard about that as a possibility. And so I went home and started Googling it, as one does. And I found out that it is actually the world's oldest healing modality. And it also causes spiritual experiences. And I didn't even know what that was. I grew up Jewish, like by tradition and by culture of being Jewish, but never having spiritual experiences. And so I ended up finding a purpose statement within myself, which basically changed the trajectory of my life, was that I wanted to heal my body to heal the world. And I ended up fasting on water for 36 days.
Amazing. Yeah, I know somebody that just did it for a week and had definitely had some experiences, but she said she was coming off the water fast for 7 days. She said her husband finally thought she was coming back to him, that he thought she had left the world and had no idea what she was trying to undertake. So I've got a feeling viewers are now Googling or searching to look and learn more about these water fasts.
Totally.
Yeah, so other than the recent incident that you've had with this e-bike, I'm
Yeah.
curious, prior to that, where has life asked you to slow down recently?
Well, it was recently. So in the last couple of years, I left sales leadership and again started pursuing what is now my life's work and my calling. And I went through a period of very tumultuous, very uncertain, lots of variety, and my body got extremely stressed from being in the flow. I decided to pursue my surrender experiment to the next level, and in doing so, I just really burnt myself out after ironically leaving an organization that helps people with that. And then I got mold exposure. And between the two of those things, with dramatic amounts of stress and mold, I was bedridden and couldn't even work, actually. So I needed to ask for help. And it was extremely humbling because what I was trying to do was get in alignment with who I am and what I was here for. And in doing so, I ended up making myself sick.
Interesting. Wow, there's some lessons there for one to explore, right? Tell me this. How has your relationship with risk changed as you've been working on this business?
Well, it's interesting. My relationship with risk has actually changed over the last decade since the fast. So because I was able to achieve something that very few people on the planet were ever able to do, let alone even have desire to do so, I learned that I can absolutely do anything that I put my mind to. And this has been a gift and a curse. So I have this ability and I have a high level of self-mastery that I've had to attain and still am practicing to be able to sit in immense amounts of uncertainty and variables without having any idea of where I'm going and still find peace and calm.
Yes, I hope that's part of what you're sharing with others because life doesn't always give us peace and calm. And I would assume, at least in my experience, when we can stay in a place of peace and calm, finding the way to the other side or the way out or the learning that it's trying to give us comes much more, if nothing else, clearly with ease and grace and probably clarity than when we're wrapped up in it.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with a neuroscientist about this actually because she helps people, find clarity and precision in high performance environments. And I do believe that to be the master level skill, that no matter what is going on around you, no matter how many things are pulling at you, no matter how many unknowns you have, that you can actually let go and find inner equilibrium no matter what the circumstances.
Yeah, I've got some ways to go. I'm good at getting myself back on track very quickly, but the reaction to it at times, not often, but the reaction to it at times, I have to find myself to reel myself back in pretty quickly. But I adjust pretty quickly, but I've mastered your level, but I'm going to, I think. So tell me this, Jaclyn, how do you decide when to pivot
Yeah.
or push through?
Great. So the way that I discern to pivot or push through is actually through releasing attachment to things. So, for example, one of the fields of work that I've studied at depth is the field of surrender, specifically as taught by Michael Singer and his surrender experiment, and actually taking reality as truth. And so, whatever it is that life gives me, whether it's I make an offer to a founder and it doesn't go what I think it does, or someone says a yes and then a no, and then things have to shift, ultimately that gives me the ability to actually let life happen through me. And my job is to actually let it hit me, to let it hit my stuff, is how Singer talks about it specifically. And so by letting it hit my stuff and allowing for that to be there without judging it or trying to change it, what happens is I actually release attachment to the thing, whatever it is. And by releasing attachment, I mean really it's the underlying energetic architecture that is causing you to do something. And the thing is, when things are from alignment, you don't have to force. So that's the thing. I actually let go first, and then what is actually in alignment will stay. And if it's not alignment, it will fall away. And so this whole idea of pushing is literally force on Hawkins scale of consciousness. It's probably from fear. It could be from, needing to prove oneself. I've seen that in a founder specifically. But when you actually just let something go and let it through you and let life teach you what it needs to teach you, my experience is that the pathway is actually provided. You just need to be listening.
I love this. I had something happen to me about a week ago where um, I confused two people, and there are many similarities about them. And but it was definitely they're not the same people. And I felt this need to apologize and make it right. And I finally got to the place of letting it go in my mind, and it was fairly quickly. And I, interestingly enough, ran into this person day before yesterday, and this person didn't give it any thought like I did. And what I found so interesting, and it was an affirmation of me, is that we're all human, and that some of the things that we give so much energy to don't deserve our time or energy because, in my case, the person involved, it didn't even bother them enough to even think about it or bring it up again. And I like this idea of letting go and seeing what's aligned that stays and what moves away automatically as a result. Tell me this, when have you chosen alignment over applause?
There was a founder who's received over $60 million worth of funding that I was working with a few years ago. This was when I was a coach and not an architect. And I was trying to restructure the offer that was based off the value instead of my time. And he just didn't understand why I was trying to change that, which partially that's my own, you know, that's my own challenge and needing to learn how to do that correctly. And at the same time, I could have still received quality income from saying yes to him at a different rate. And he was like, why won't you just receive what it is that you were receiving before? You're already receiving more than everyone else is in this area, or at least at the higher end of the spectrum in terms of exchange. And for me, it actually was more important for me to be in my no than it was for me to settle in that circumstance, because I know that that person, if he had achieved success with my support, the VCs, the investors, the people that he works for, all the people that his work impacts, it wouldn't have been proportional in the work that I had done with him. So I decided to walk away and get nothing instead of
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I love the word no. I think there's an art to no at times, because sometimes no means not now, but sometimes no means no. And as some people say, no is a complete sentence at times. And I like the word no. I think we're brought up that no is not such a positive word or a positive place to come from. And in this case, integrity is very important to me. So I think when something is compromising it, I don't want any part of it as soon as I identify it. How does Jaclyn move through um, getting close to burnout or uncertainty? Now, you've answered that a little, but I'd love to hear it again for the viewers or a different bent on it of when it's getting like it's just so much or there's deep uncertainty. What happens? Is that another time that you just let go?
Yeah, so I've actually taught myself to let go on at will. And so you were talking to me about the bike incident. It's the same thing. I just let go instantly. And that's because that's actually my underlying skill set that I've trained myself in. About 6 or 7 years ago, I was receiving the care that I needed to come back to the world after the water fast. And I got introduced to Dr. David Hawkins' work for Power versus Force. And then I got introduced to Dr. Hawkins' work in Surrender, the Mechanism of Letting Go. It's another one of his books, which it's actually a very simple 3-step process that I've actually learned how to master, and not in the sense of it's intellectual, that it's in my body. And so, yes, I have programmed myself to learn how to let go at will. And sometimes stress makes it hard, or how I'm recovering that day. If I'm a whooper. So for me, if I have a yellow recovery, energy literally doesn't move through my nervous system as efficiently as it does when I'm in a green recovery. And so sometimes I need to take extra care of myself, which sometimes that means talking to friends, or that means going out into nature and putting my feet on the earth and having a conversation with God out in nature, or sleeping outside has been a really valuable resource. I find that alone time is the answer for when clarity is needed,
Yeah.
especially when there's a lot of noise.
I find nature for me is, remember old computers, we used to have to do the function called a defrag, and now they do it automatically, right? For me, nature with no music, just nature and me is like a defrag for my brain. And this is interesting me so much because, as I think I shared with you, most of my viewers know it. I've had 2 life-threatening illnesses, and I've lived with metastatic cancer for 14 years. And I get a scan or a test every now and then, and I have to take action. And I don't react to it anymore. I don't have a reaction to the result. I move to what's next. What can I do? And I had a lesson from it because I have to realize other people aren't there with me. I was giving a talk, and most of the people there knew about my history, and I mentioned something about a test, and people were coming to me for weeks after, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And my reaction when they asked me was, "What do you mean, am I okay?" And I never correlated that my experience and what I had learned to do with it was someone else's. Taught me a valuable lesson of how and when I share that without some context around it. So this is a wonderful conversation we're having. I'm interested, Jaclyn, what are you most proud of? Not publicly, not professionally, personally.
Well, as of this moment in time, I'm most proud of me having a helmet that fit correctly
Yeah.
and was on correctly because it worked. And that is something that I'm most proud of. The other thing that I think I'm most proud of is the person that I've gotten to become on the other side of the water fast over the last decade has made me someone who can actually talk about greatness from a lens of it's something that's way beyond what you can imagine, because I can tell you that I am someone that I'm way beyond than I could imagine. And there's so much excitement in that, in being that and getting to inspire people through literally just me being. That was a goal that I had 5 or 6 years ago, that it was just a blessing for me being here. Like I didn't have to do anything, but who I've become has become a blessing. And I've let go of a tremendous amount of negativity within this being. And it has made me someone that can transform others with literally just meeting me or just listening to me. And that's such a great.
Yes, yes. Tell me this, what boundary has become essential to your sustainability?
Probably not associating time with money, actually, like not selling my time for money. I'm a projector in human design, and I don't know if your listeners know what that is or anything like that, but I'm not someone that's meant to go work infinitely. I'm not someone who is the engine. I'm actually the guide. And I can see things that other people can't see as long as I have an invitation for it. So for me, what burns me out is being part of other people's systems, or systems that have to tell me what to do with my time and in what way that I need to do it. It literally doesn't work for my gifts to be able to be online, which means that I have to be able to control my time. Otherwise, I burn out.
Mm. There's people searching right now in the wisdom of that, and that's really powerful. We may have to do a part two and just talk about that, Jaclyn. Tell me this. I, I'd like to know, like, have you ever said no to growth because it wasn't aligned, other than the example you gave us?
I think for me, I just want to dictate alignment. And I think you and I are both dictating alignment as integrity. So for me, coming and integrating back into the world after the fast, it wasn't just like this nice to have integrity. It was actually what made me sane, because integrity is really wholeness. And so for me to get healthy and to be able to integrate that experience and come back into the world and do what I'm here to do, I had to devote myself to something higher. And that something higher is happens to be integrity as the baseline. That level of wholeness has to be the baseline, because if I don't put my integrity first, then it literally takes from me and it takes from the people around me specifically. So I'm trying to think of a specific no. I actually recently had one with my parents, believe it or not. They were trying to help me in a certain way that they thought they were helping. And the issue with love, which I guess most people don't say the issue with love, but I did get to experience unconditional love for weeks on end during the fast. And it's actually something that flows through you, and it's through everyone at all times. It's actually completely impersonal. And so for me, with my mother who was trying to give me something, I actually had to say no to both my father and my mother to actually make sure their intent was pure. And my mother was
Mm.
shocked, actually. She was like, I was really trying to help you. And I was like, I get you're really trying to help me, but a lot of people don't realize what they're doing is not actually love, even though they think it is.
I love this concept. I talk with people when they're seeking advice, clarity, support, whatever, that sometimes we need to be really conscious about going to the people that love us or our friends because they love us and they're our friends. And I think I don't I think you would agree with this. I know I want, if I'm seeking that, I want the clearest information I can get. I want it unfiltered. I want to be less concerned about how it makes me feel. And I think those that love us, no matter how they can offer that to us, whether friend or family, often want to be concerned about how it's going to make us feel, or they bring something to the table they know about us, either in our past or in their past, and we don't get as clear or as a helpful feedback that we might be looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. People are making decisions in their way of doing things through previous filters of who you've been, especially people that love you. Your family has so many frames of who you've been, and they might not be able to see what it is that you're currently becoming yet, partially because they might not even have the mental models for it. That's part of my challenge is I've become something my mother couldn't even imagine. So to expect her to understand is just unrealistic.
To me, yes, it is. I agree with you. I agree with you on that. It's not in her structure of knowing to see it. So tell me this. What have you learned about trust on this adventure with your business?
That my trust ultimately is in God, actually. Uh, that's not something I was before when I was 25. I again grew up Jewish, and that was never the thing. And for me to go into the uncertainty of creating something that is literally going to create systemic change in a way that's never been done before, it's required an immense amount of faith, especially when it comes to impossible goals. Like part of it is like, I believe I can do it, but like, will it work? Right? That's the thing. It's like you're setting a moonshot, and I've continuously been surprised about what happens with moonshots because there are just things I can't predict. I think that's the hardest part I have about being human and why I've actually learned to be so open-minded because reality shows me what I can't see. And that's actually the fuel that keeps me going.
Hmm. What does renewal look like for you beyond rest or a day off?
Mhm. So my partner and I went on a great date the other day, and it was just like walking down Pearl Street here in Boulder, Colorado, and there were these fun hats with like mushrooms and like strawberries on them, and we ended up buying them and then going into a fine dining restaurant that was a Michelin star with these like ridiculous hats on, which literally was breaking every social boundary ever, but it was just a complete blast. I think for me, it's actually finding fun and that it's not all work because the work is great, right? It's meaningful. There's a higher purpose behind it. But if I'm not enjoying the actual process of achieving the thing, then there's absolutely no point.
I love this. Yeah, that's great. What does legacy mean to you at this stage of life?
So legacy is actually something I think of quite often. So one of my gifts is actually immortality. I'm a student of the Gene Keys by Richard Rudd, and the shadow, which is the contraction or the fear-based state of it, is purposelessness. So I've actually had to look at the parts of me that have felt purposelessness at depth, including the parts of me that are afraid to die, or aren't living fully, or are scared to live fully. Right? These are all the different ways that purposelessness shows up. And I already have, quite frankly, gone through an ego death. There was many years ago, I actually um, went from a previous name of mine to a Hebrew name of mine. And I'm not afraid to die anymore. And so part of what it is that I'm building is actually from the frame of something that outlasts me because it's not about me. And that's actually one of the gifts of the scaling science, party scaling science. One of the principles is you cannot scale something that's dependent on you. And when you have that frame, you can make every single decision to actually make something that is not about you. And when it's not about you, you can actually make something that outlasts you. So everything that we're doing right now, whether it be the network itself and the repeatable structure to be able to create the conditions for change, to the partnerships and the advisors that we're working with to make sure that their work scales and doesn't just last past them, but lasts past me. Right? Like I'm thinking from that lens from the beginning. And as soon as we can start thinking that it's not about us, then we can actually start thinking about the whole.
Where are you choosing courage over certainty at the moment?
Everywhere right now. The whole circumstance that we're working on right now, the financial circumstances, the scale of it, the advisors of it. I mean, I would say my whole life is totally choosing courage. And again, it's not just courage though; it's faith too. Because courage, I've had to develop courage to be able to do ridiculous things. And I often talk about how what we're doing is similar to how when the men settled the West, when they went into the Rocky Mountains and there was like no path through and they had to talk to the Indians and they couldn't even understand what they were saying, but they trusted and they found a gateway through the Rocky Mountains. And that's why we're here right now. Like that is who I am at the moment. I am pioneering something that is completely brand new. I'm going into this thing that I may or may not come out of, but at the same time, I'm fully in it.
Mm, love. There's some wisdom there of trusting and being fully in something, and what that turns out to be, even if it doesn't, even if you don't find the gate, right? And what you might learn on that journey about yourself and about everything. I want to know this, Jaclyn. We're living in a wild yet wonderful world. What is your greatest hope for the world today?
Well, my hope, the legacy that I'm wanting to leave behind is actually a prosperous, philanthropic, full-serving, full-tilt society. Like when I look at Ray Dalio's work on the changing world order right now and see where we are in terms of our economy and the different metrics between when a empire falls and rises, is I believe that we'll actually be at the precipice of prosperity when I die, actually. And so whether it be the thing that I build or even potentially even the children that I have, everything that I'm doing is to make sure that the people behind me, the people who haven't even been born yet, actually receive better conditions and a more possible circumstances to really achieve what they don't even realize that they can achieve.
Mm, wow. Tell me this. If a very, very, very young Jaclyn was looking at this podcast with us,
Yeah.
what would you tell her?
Her she'd be pretty flabbergasted, to be honest. She had a really hard time in school. Those conditions were not made for me and the way my brain works specifically. So to see me now having a voice and people wanting to talk to me, going out of their way to talk to me, actually, out of everyone that they have the opportunity to meet, that I've become someone that special people, that significant people that honestly I think would blow her mind, which
Wow.
makes sense because I had to blow my mind a number of times to be able to get here.
Yeah. Let's tell me this. If your story could leave my listeners with one invitation, what would
Mhm.
it
So one of the things that I want to make sure for the people listening to this is that there are likely insights and either insights, epiphanies, pathways, or even potentially new um, ways of thinking that actually could have opened up from listening to me. And that's on purpose. I am a cultural catalyst. So I want them to take action, even if it's just a micro action, whether it be journaling on it or posting about it or whatever it is that got stirred up in them from this. I want them to do something with what it is that they received from this conversation.
Pioneer Jaclyn Orent, CEO and co-founder of Cultural Catalyst Network. How can we find you?
The best way to find me is culturalcatalyst.net. We are the one based in the United States, helping powerful leaders across communities and organizations create the systemic change that none of them could do alone. So that is our website. You can find me directly on social media as well, Jaclyn Orent on Facebook and Jaclyn Orent on Instagram. And of course, I've got lots of podcasts. So if you want more of me, I definitely encourage to re-listen to this one because I do know that the more people listen, and just get the chance to be around me, the more insights and the more transformation
Yeah.
can actually occur.
Yes, I'm sure this will be one that will be watched more than once. So, Jaclyn, thank you for being on Opening Pathways today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and to my viewers, this is Tom LeNoble, and I'll see you next time.